tuned in to Buffalo's WDAP Radio.
Hi, I'm Angelita Sanders Bellamy, Chief Operating Officer at DAP Multimedia Group and Buffalo's WDAP Radio. I'd like to tell you to please stay encouraged and stay safe at home, because the life that you're saving may be your own. We're in this together. Thank you.
Pro Talk with the Mighty Oba. The Mighty Oba, Pro Talk.
Welcome to Pro Talk with the Mighty Oba. We are here today with my good friend George Radney from the Challenger Community News and our special guest, Vance Johnson. Vance Johnson was one of the great three amigos from the Denver Broncos during the glory years of the 1990s. He was recruited by Mike Shanahan and was one of the great players of the legacy of those championship teams. Man, Vance Johnson is someone that I met at the Super Bowl in 2019 in Atlanta, and after that I knew I had to contact him to have him on this broadcast. Vance, how you doing?
I am blessed, brother. Thank you, man. I've been looking forward to it. It was good to see you at the Super Bowl.
It was, and just hearing a brief description of your story, I knew that I had to be exposed to your book. The name of your book is Uncovered: Why Becoming Less Became Everything. What made you put this book together, Vance?
Interesting. Over the course of the last 6 years that I've been clean, free from the bondage of addiction and really knowing how to cope with my mental illness, I wanted to tell my story. And the only way you can really share your story with anybody is to be uncovered, meaning literally be naked. And so during my career, the whole thing was no one can cover me, right? In football, they can't cover me. They can't cover me. Well, guess what? I figured I'd do the same thing when it came to talking about what's happened in my life, so that hopefully someone else would be free and know that I can break some stigma by uncovering my life story, my journey.
Well, part of your journey, too, you talked about in the beginning of your book, was that you were exposed to domestic abuse. Can you just tell me a little bit about your early beginnings?
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey, actually. Good place to be from. And I mean that, actually. So my father grew up in the streets of Jersey, and he was raised by the streets because his father died at a very young age. And so my dad didn't have a father to look up to. And so he learned through his experiences how to live life. And a part of that life was to get involved with using drugs, selling, running numbers in the streets, and just feeding his flesh, because he was one of 6 siblings and it was about having fun. Well, he got into trouble at one point because he actually was a part of a gang. Mm-hmm. And my dad, being in this gang, was literally at one point one of the last gang members alive. And so when he was facing a lot of jail time and possible prison, a lifetime of prison, the judge told him, listen, this was back in the 50s. You have a choice, young man. You're either going to end up dead, you're going to end up prison, possibly for a lifetime, or I'm going to give you an option. And back in the 50s, they did this. They offered him a chance to join the service. And so my dad opted for the service, where he was stationed out in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And while in Arizona and being in the service in the Army, he got a little bit of, underneath his belt, start getting disciplined. And they let him go out one night. And my father went out to, do you remember a singer by the name of James Brown?
Yes, sir.
Well, my father goes to a James Brown concert, and he sees a young lady sitting inside of a car, and he taps on the window, and she rolls the window down, and couldn't push a button back then. You had to roll it with your hand. So she rolls the window down and introduces herself, says, hi, my name is Gene. And he says, my name is Gene. So he talked to this young lady. He was 21 and talked to a 15-year-old girl. He ended up going out to where she lived at, where she picked cotton for a living. And after a few months, he proposed to her. And she ended up getting pregnant, and as a result, we obviously know that's my mom now. We moved back to New Jersey, but then there's a saying: you can take the brother out of Jersey, but you can't take Jersey out of the brother. So my father went back to his ways, and he started running numbers. And the other thing he started doing again was, being abusive to my mother, because he didn't know how to treat a woman. So Mom was really sick of it. She was scared. She was a young girl. So she took me and snuck out back to Arizona. Well, my father wanted me in his life, so he brought us back to New Jersey. And he continued the domestic abuse of my mother. And my sister was born. And it got to a point where my mom said, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm leaving you. I'm taking my kids back to Arizona. If you want to come be with us out there, you can. That's where the saying is, you can take the brother out of Jersey, but you can't take Jersey out the brother. So nothing changed in Tucson, Arizona. The domestic violence actually got even worse, and now my sister and I start witnessing it as children.
How did that affect you, Vance, witnessing the abuse? Interesting
enough, this is how it affects you. When you get, as a young child, exposed to domestic stuff happening in the home, it really starts to affect you emotionally. And being from Jersey, we got a saying, you don't tell people at school or in the public what's happening in your life at home behind the closed doors. Well, my sister and I spent a lot of time crying and witnessing my mom be beat on, her nose bloody, her eyes blackened, and my father coming home late at night, smelling the alcohol, the marijuana. Back in the late 60s, it was PCP, I think, was the drug of choice for a lot of people. But he was also a functional alcoholic. And so it really affected my sister and I to the point where I hated this man. And I really planned on, when I grew up, man, staying close to Mom, so that if I had to, I was going to kill this I'm not going to say a bad word, I don't cuss anymore. I was going to kill this brother because I was sick of the way I saw him treating my mother. And I sure wasn't going to be like him because he was just an evil man. And not knowing that when you grow up as a child, the things that you are witness to, the things that you are surrounded in your environment to,
yes,
you don't know, but you're going to become that.
Yes.
Right? No matter how bad you don't want to, if you don't know anything else, how else can you create your own world? And as we go on with the story, I'll share how I tried to create my own world.
How did you try to do that, Vance?
Well, I'll tell you exactly how I tried to do it. So growing up as a kid, the last thing I wanted to do was have a relationship because I didn't know how to be a husband. The last thing I wanted to do was have sex because I saw what my father was doing with his penis. And so all I did was I thought girls were pretty, but I wanted to just keep to myself. Well, I started sneaking in my father's room, like teenagers do. And actually, I was probably around 9 or 10. Then I started I started seeing these magazines. You remember a magazine called Hustler?
Yes, sir.
Well, I was sneaking in my father's closet, and I was looking at these magazines called Hustler, and I opened the magazine up, and I saw these amazing, happy, smiling, naked white women. So to me, that was happiness.
Okay.
So I'm seeing a father beat on a black mom, and I'm thinking, when I grow up, I'm going to marry one of them because that's happiness. I don't want to be around what I'm seeing, this black woman get beat up. So, and I see my mom arguing back with him and my father arguing. We'd go to church, but we were living like hypocrites, unfortunately. I didn't know the word hypocrite back then. To me, it was normal. I got to a point when I was a teenager, man, where I was so angry with my father, I promised myself that I was going to cut my penis off.
Oh, wow.
And I meant it. You see some mental illness going on right now?
Yes, sir.
And my only escape, and this is the reality of it, my only escape was creating an identity for myself, and that was becoming an athlete and being famous and being great and being better than everybody else and living a life in my head so that I didn't have to live the one in reality that I was growing up around.
Wow.
But it also made my father proud. And so by making him proud, he beat on my mom less. So this was the making of pain making me into a great athlete, not knowing that it was going to lead literally at one point to me almost dying. So at that young age, I just really wanted to, obviously, like I said, make him proud. I wanted to protect Mom, and I wanted to be great. And so it was about running races, winning track meets. I got to the point where I was going to the across the country, even outside of the United States of America, where I won the gold medal as a young athlete in the Pan American Games. So sports was what drove me when I was a child.
When did it start, diversifying for yourself with sports?
The sports that I ran, that I did, which was running because I was a little guy and I was shy, was track and field. And, I actually ended up going to college, and I beat Carl Lewis in the long jump as a freshman in college. And that really set me off into this spiraling thing, thinking I know I'm going to be great one day. In my football career, I had a chance to come from a fifth place running back to first string in less than a week because I ended up running a kickoff return back for 99 yards for a touchdown on a kickoff return. And so it was just about living that life of fame and hopefully one day fortune. And the other thing that happened to me was once I became a young college athlete, I ended up having a girlfriend and having sex. And since I didn't know how to be a man, she got pregnant the very first time I had sex.
Wow.
And this ended up happening twice in a row because her dad wouldn't let me spend any more time with her because I wouldn't quit football. So I got even by having sex with another woman, had another baby. So I've got two kids before I even go to college. Before I even get out of college.
Wow.
So I don't know how much time we have in this interview. I don't know if we're going to a break or nothing, but I can keep going or I can hold off.
You can keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here I am now. I'm this great athlete in college. I've got an amazing opportunity to possibly get drafted and go to. I'm sorry if you hear my phone buzzing because everyone's calling me all over the country.
I understand.
Yes. So here I have now this amazing opportunity to go to the Junior Olympics. I go to the Junior Olympics and win the gold medal. Then I get an opportunity to be a part of the Olympics. I barely missed the Olympics by a quarter of an inch. I got beat the last jump of the night, so I was on the team as an alternate in long jump. Then I go to the scouting combine, and I end up running against Jerry Rice.
Wow.
In the 40 meters. And my good friend Randall Cunningham, former Eagles quarterback and now pastor of a church in Las Vegas, he actually was one of my really good friends at the time. He threw me passes and then told me to blow Jerry Rice away. I ran a 4.18, 4.19, and that was back when you could do stopwatches, not electronic timing. So, at this point in my life, there was no domestic issues in my life. I was not the man that was going to put his hands on a woman. I was just a man that was achievement-oriented. I wanted to achieve my identity. So now, here I am. I get drafted in the second pick in the second round by the Denver Broncos. At this time in my life, brother, I hadn't smoked no weed. I haven't drank no alcohol. I haven't done any drugs. And there was nothing about that lifestyle that I wanted to be a part of, especially because I saw my father do it all. I get drafted by the Denver Broncos, second pick, second round. I fly out to Denver, Colorado. And I go through the first 3 preseason games, and I'm doing really good. It's going to be an amazing time, and I'm one of the stars. We get to the 4th and final preseason game before the final cuts. We play against San Francisco. I'm back there standing on the 10-yard line at the end of the game, and all I have to do is do a fair catch for a punt. And I end up dropping the punt. The ball rolls in the end zone, and San Francisco scores a touchdown and wins the ball game.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's where things kind of got rocky for me. Because at that time, my teammates thought I was going to get cut. So on the way home, I knew I was going to get cut. On the way that very next morning to the locker room, before the final cuts, they stopped by the liquor store, and I had my first shot of tequila.
Uh-oh. That was your first drink?
That was my first drink, man. I was almost 23. I think I was 23 years old, my first drink in my life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because it took away all the anxiety, and I didn't get cut. So now I'm able to get through my first part of my career with having a little drink once in a while because it took the nerve off. I actually was brave. I started talking to more girls. I started having a few injuries on the football field, and so I got introduced to prescription pills for pain.
Yeah.
Now, alcohol and the pain medication, I'm a rock star now, man. I'm playing reckless. I'm meeting women. I'm just having a great time. So this is kind of how the beginning of my road to addiction started, was by coping, by using.
As far as your stardom that you were starting to obtain, did the addiction feed into that, or did it become more? Did you become more dependent on the addiction?
Interesting enough, I didn't realize at this point in my life, but I was being addicted to pretty much anything that made me feel good. So the fame made me feel good. The fortune made me feel good. The accolades and the people, knowing my name and wanting my autograph gave me identity. And by using alcohol and prescription pills and then playing reckless on the football field because I was one of the smallest guys, it actually made me brave. And so what I saw myself doing was things that I wouldn't normally do if I was in my right mind, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But I didn't know I was actually building a tolerance up to the point where this was going to become a problem. And during that early part of my career, and smoking marijuana for the first time at age 24, drinking alcohol consistently, taking pain medications, getting shots of morphine because of the injuries, life was good, man. I ended up actually meeting another young lady, and She got pregnant. So here I am now with the third woman pregnant. I didn't want to do the same thing I had done when I was a little younger. So I promised to marry her. And I actually ended up, because she was going to have an abortion, flew out to Houston, Texas to pick her up and then fly out to Las Vegas to get married. Ended up losing about $60,000 out there in Vegas that night. But I got married for $12 the next morning. So.
It kind of balanced it off a little bit.
Balanced it off. So I wanted to do things right this time.
Were you gambling when you lost the $60,000?
I don't think there's any other way to lose out there in Vegas except gambling. So that was another addiction. You see this starting to build up now, man?
Yes.
Like, everything I'm doing is at an excess. So I end up flying back out to Denver, Colorado with my new wife. We get married, obviously, in Vegas. We have a son, and I'm just happy. So I'm going to do things different. I'm not going to be like my father. I'm not going to be like this man who was abusive, who didn't know how to treat his wife. I'm going to do things different. Yeah, I had 2 other children by 2 other women, but, bye, Felicia. I'm going to live my life. This is my world now. Well, a few months later, after we had a child, man, I'm in the shower one day with all these guys. These brothers are huge, too, not just tall. So somebody got that out there listening to the show. Anyway, one of my teammates said, "How's our girl Ange doing?" And I was like, "Who are you talking about, Ange?" Another guy says, "Angela, big freak." Dude, these guys were having sex with my wife.
What?
Yes. My teammates were screwing my wife. I was so pissed off.
Oh, my goodness.
I was so pissed off. When I left out of that shower, man, and by the way, I just saw these brothers this past weekend. So at the Denver Bronco game where I got inducted into the top 100 all-time Denver Broncos. And we'll talk about forgiveness at the end of the show.
Okay.
So I'm so pissed off, man. I run home. I'm taking Xanax at the time, and I'm drinking. I'm pissed off, man. I go upstairs, and I'm screaming and yelling at my wife. And I'm confronting her about cheating on me with my teammates. And I pushed her across the bed, man, and she flies across this bed, and she hits her head on the closet door, and she's laying on the ground, and she's not breathing. Literally, I mean, I'm sitting there, and my wife looks, she's dead. And so I pick her up, man. I'm trying to revive her, and I run into the bathroom carrying her, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to go to prison. And I'm trying to get her to breathe, and I'm dumping water out the toilet into her face, man, and then she breathes. And I was so angry now that she's even alive. And so what am I going to do? The very same thing that I saw my father do. My mother didn't deserve to be abused, but this woman cheated on me, and so she deserves everything she gets. Now, I've been telling you all ever since I was a kid how mental health is a big deal.
Yes.
And if I don't know how to cope or to deal or to get through relationships or navigate, I didn't know nothing about counselors. I thought counselors were for people that were crazy. I'm Vance Johnson. I'm famous. So my fix was to get a divorce because I hate her and then cheat because my teammates are cheating. So now here I am, man. I get another divorce and I get married again. I make another woman pregnant. I'm cheating on all of them while using Xanax, drinking, smoking weed in the off season, spending all my money. I mean, it was just out of control, man. I mean, you literally would have to show a movie for people to be able to experience everything in the depth so they can see how even what they see right now happening around the league with these guys that are struggling with this domestic stuff.
Yes.
Brother, they got problems, man. They got mental health problems, man. It comes from back when they were children, but nobody sees it. They only see the edited version of what the news wants you to see. These guys are hurting.
So the root of your issues was at the beginning seeing the abuse that your mother received from your father.
Exactly.
And then the sad thing you talked about before, you found yourself becoming your father. Am I right?
Worse. I mean, literally worse. I mean, I didn't think that then. I thought then I was better than my father because, see, my mother didn't deserve that. She was a young 15-year-old who got married at a young age and was a virgin. This person right here deserved to be abused because she cheated on me with my teammates. You see how crazy that is, man? I mean, where's forgiveness in that? There's no forgiveness in that. And so the only way I was coping was by stimulating and doing it over and over again. Man, I went to my first Super Bowl in 1986, and we ended up playing against the Giants, and we lost. So you Giants fans out there, you're welcome. But I go back home. I'm in my closet at home, and I'm like, that was where I wanted to be my whole life, was famous and go to the Super Bowl. I come back home from the Super Bowl, and I'm empty. So I'm sitting inside of my closet, and I'm drunk. I'm using drugs, man, and I'm cutting my wrist. I wanted to die. And all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's my mother saying, the Spirit put you on my mind. I needed to call and check on you, son. I said, Mom, I'm so glad you called because I was going to kill myself.
Did any of your teammates at the time know what was going on with you?
Brother, my teammates didn't have a clue. And as we go on with the story, you'll see, I just saw these guys this past weekend, and you should have saw what they were looking like when I was showing them a picture of me and what happened to me. As time goes on through my career, man, I mean, these guys didn't have any idea what I was doing off the field, except they knew I was a whore, but they was whores too. And so, well, we won't get into that because I ain't going to start name calling. Right. So I ended up actually, throughout this 10-year career, man, 3 Super Bowls, which I just kept trying to feed my flesh and make myself better, 4 marriages, having 3 women pregnant at the same time. Man, I had my wife pregnant. I had another woman that I was seeing pregnant, and I had somebody else's wife pregnant at the same time during my career. Oh, you think I would have went viral?
Yes.
I mean, I don't even think that's impossible in the history of the NFL that one professional football player had 3 women pregnant at the same time during his career, but I did.
Wow. Vance, do you think George Radney from Challenger Community News?
Hey, brother.
The question for you: do you feel that the physicality of the game did that hurt a lot of guys when they come out the field and you play such a physical sport and then go home and deal with everyday issues? Do you think that kind of helps in the sense of bring on the violence, or bring on the domestic violence and things of that nature?
I think there's 2 answers to that. The first one is no, because there's nothing about being in that atmosphere that's going to make you angry because you didn't do well, so then you're going to go home and beat on your wife. But the other answer is yes, because the concussions and the underlying things, the pressures and the stresses that happen on the field was trying to figure out how you're going to make the team, and then going home and then somebody having a disagreement with you or your spouse or girlfriend, you know, doing something that because you feel like you're a pretty person and you should be, you know, the god of your world, anything they do is going to set you off. So it's kind of a 2-edged sword right there. But there were guys, you know, like for instance, Simon Fletcher, like Steve Atwater, like Steve Foley, and Steve Watson. Those guys, man, they were cool, calm, collected. They were in their locker room. They played great football, and they loved their brides. And they're still married to this day. They weren't going home abusing their wives.
Wow. Steve Atwater was real violent. He used to bring it, too, man.
Bro, thank you so much. Remember the hit heard around the world when he hit Christian Okoye?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They call that the hit heard around the world. But Steve Atwater was the kindest, nicest, most sweetest guy in the world inside the locker room. And he was the same person with his relationships.
Wow.
Vance, when did you know you had to start, or when did you know you were basically approaching rock bottom? Or when did it just start falling apart?
This is when it fell apart. At the end of 10 years, I had a chance to go back and sign another 3-year contract and back up Rod Smith. I was so into myself and I was so into my feelings and using that I didn't even retire. I just walked away from the game. And so when I walked away from the game, the lights went out. And now I have no idea. And that rock bottom to me wasn't rock bottom. That was getting away from what wasn't making me feel good anymore. And so my only coping at that point in my life was to use more, to drink more, take more pills, have more sex, meet more women, get married over and over again. I mean, again, I don't know how much time we have, but long story short, dude, I was married 7 times. 7 times during that period of time in my life. And ironically, having children with all these women and abandoning my children each time, I had 3 children that literally were being sexually abused that I didn't even find out until the last few years. That one of my sons was getting raped by his grandfather on his mother's side. Another son was getting raped by a babysitter. And a daughter of mine was being raped by her mother's boyfriend right in the same bed next to her mom. So during this time in my life where I'm living in my addiction, you know, I just felt like, you know, life is over, man. And so I'm just going to use and go figure out how to be famous again. I started ripping people off. I had a restaurant. My oldest son came over to the western slope of Colorado to see me. And so to me, my life was starting all over again. But I didn't realize that the only thing I was coping with was dealing with life was by using drugs and alcohol. My oldest son actually ends up coming over, and he tries to get a hold of me one morning, and he can't reach me because I'm doing somebody or doing something. And he ends up actually, because he had broken the engine in his car, took his motorcycle across the mountain to see his mother, to spend some time with her because her dad had just died of cancer. My son got killed that night. And it was my fault that my son died.
That was your oldest son?
Yeah. It was my fault that my son died. And the only way I was going to be able to deal with my son, I'm sorry, man, I get really emotional.
No, that's okay.
I talk about this story every day. But I keep going back to that day because I don't ever want to forget what it felt like. And I woke up the next morning and I got a call from my ex-wife, my first wife, and she said our son was dead. And the only way I coped in my life, even right then, was to use more. And so for the next 2 years, man, all I did was drinking and smoking and pills for 2 years straight. And I called my mom one night and I said, Mom, I'm going to die. I'm going to die tonight, Mom. And so she says, no, son, no. And she races over to my house and she picks me up and we're racing to the hospital. And I get out of the car, walking into the hospital, and I literally fell into a coma. And so they rushed me to this larger hospital where they can induce a coma. And so I laid there in the bed for 28 days in a coma. And my kids, they called because my mother was afraid to pull the plug because my body was shutting down and my organs were shutting down. And so they called my kids and they all got a conference call and they said, screw him, we hate him, let him freaking die. And so they unplugged me. And I wish I had sent you the deathbed picture of me, but there's a photo of me that my sister took while they propped me up to watch me stop breathing. Yeah. When I woke up from that coma, man, I was chained to the bed, and I started talking to the people that were visiting me, and I said, you've been visiting me this whole time. And they were like, yeah, Vance, but you were in a coma. I said, I saw you guys. I saw the different pastors that came to pray over me. Dude, I was traveling around the hospital in my spirit, because I knew what was upstairs, and the nurse would be like, that's upstairs, Mr. Johnson, but you haven't been out of that bed. Then all of a sudden, these dark shadows would be walking into my bedroom looking at me every day. And I was like, those aren't angels. Every day I saw these dark shadows. I mean, they were demons, man. And this is after I was awake. And I start realizing that, you know what, this world that we live in, this flesh world, is just a dressing room for eternity, man. This is not the real thing. This flesh dies. But that didn't stop me from using drugs and alcohol.
Join us for part 2 of the Vance Johnson interview on Pro Talk. Pro Talk, Pro Talk, Pro Talk with the Mighty Oba. The Mighty Oba, Pro Talk.
Buffalo's WDAP Radio, speaker.com.